flying in southern states, I would be extra on guard, you know, for any of that, like, you know, racist comments, people, like, whatever it might be. Thankfully, it didn't always happen at like an airport or something. It kind of happened when my guard was down.
Yeah.
But it's just happened, like, these microaggressions are just like a little bit more, you know, just elevated and amped up, because it's not so much like, oh my god, which part of India are you from? It's, you know, like, there's situations where people are literally like, ew, don't touch me. And it's been like linked back to racism. And I think it's just been amped up a little bit more. And what's scary for me is, you know, with all the privilege that I have, if it's this scary for me, I feel really horrible for the people that are genuinely terrified to lose their life at any moment, particularly for Black Americans who live with that nightmare every single day and that fear every single day. And I worry for Black America the most when it comes to this next election.
Yeah, 100%. And I just love you. I just like, I don't know. I'm just very proud to be your friend. But I think like one of the things that it's like the microaggressions, right? Like that you touched on, because a lot of people, I think, like in the face of that art, like of hearing about like racial experience, like race experiences in America, like the response is like, well, I've never seen anyone be racist. And it's like, well, there's like two parts to that, right? It's like overt racism. I mean, like nowadays we're seeing more of it because of like certain like alt-right parties being validated. But like it's usually not like, well, okay, I'm not gonna say usually because I haven't had to experience this, but like to my knowledge, it's not mostly like overt, and a lot of it is like the microaggression, and also just like the perception, right? Like even if like you're around people who are not racist, like when you're like in national politics, I mean, aren't racist, but like when you're like hearing in the 24-hour news cycle about like all the things happening in the different parts of the country where like there are like overt acts of just like blatant racism and like people being unsafe and like all the ways in which like Black America is attacked, like you can't help but like carry that with you when you walk into any situation and like be on guard against it, even if like objectively maybe the people you're around are allies, right? Like you carry that with you. It's not just something you forget and like put down when I'm saying I'm not trying to tell you how you experience racism, but I mean, like I would assume that that's how it's taken. I remember the one time we were walking around like a small town in, I think, Massachusetts, and ended up like I googled. Do you remember like I googled the population statistics there?
Yeah,
and it ended up like the town was like 99% white, and I just remember like everyone looking at you. I'm sorry to bring that up. That's kind of a shitty thing to
No, it's not a shitty thing at all. That is my entire experience. Being Asian American is constantly noticing how I'm different, how I don't match the pattern of the room.
Yeah.
And so I have to adjust to match the pattern. Like I think many marginalized people like feel this way. I also think that like for women in like male dominated spaces, which is most of America, is, you know, realizing that, oh, I'm a woman in this space. How do I adjust for this?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of marginalized people can relate to each other on that aspect, is feeling different, feeling like the other, and wanting to adjust. But, you know, this also brings up an interesting thing for me, which is, you know, we aren't always going to notice how the other is oppressed. And I've been in conversations where, you know, with Sophie, where Sophie's been like, this is sexist for this reason. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't think of this. And she's like, yes, this is sexist because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, of course I don't notice it's sexist because I'm a fucking man. And in my head, like, if it doesn't affect me, it's not sexist. It's not wired. Like, my brain goes, oh, it's wired in a way that goes, oh, if it doesn't affect me, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I'd love to hear you speak more on that because, like, we don't always notice each other's oppressions, even though we are both marginalized people.
Yeah, I think it's like I feel that you probably experience the same thing, but it's like it constitutes like a level of overthinking that's just like unwelcome, but like all the time. So it's like when I walk into like a work environment or somewhere, or I'm getting ready to go somewhere, like the first thing I think about is like, how do I look and how do I need to look, and how, like, if I'm going to be like, impressive, then I need to look a certain way. But like in a workspace, you don't want to look too good or else you're not taken seriously. And but at the same time, like women, especially like in workspaces, like me working at this think tank, I'm very, very lucky to like work in an office that is incredible, like that I perceive to be pretty like inclusive and woke. But there is still a level of like women, for the most part, I think are taught to like carry the brunt and like internalize conflict and be the person that like calms the waters. So like if there's an argument, like you don't yell back, you like are like, okay, okay, cool, thank you, and like you de-escalate the situation. And like I've talked to so like the most infuriating one is I've talked to so many friends, and I used to feel this way, and it's still something like I fight against, where it's like I feel like I owe someone like my physical or emotional attraction. Like if I'm not into someone like on a date and I don't want to kiss them at the end of the date, like I feel bad about that. Or like if they bought me dinner, I have to like kiss them in return. Like stuff like a lot of like tit for tat kind of stuff, no pun intended. So like a lot of, I think like where I feel it the most is definitely like as a woman is mostly definitely around like physical, um it's like a lot of like internalizing things, like everything is my fault and I have to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think like also, my mental health plays into that as well and like exacerbates it. And then the other thing would probably be about like a lot of like physical, like watching myself physically, like how do I look, do I look good enough to like be respected, like that kind of stuff, things that should not have to do at all with like level of respect, or willing to, like that have nothing to do with like my ability to speak on a topic intelligently. It's like it doesn't matter what my hair looks like, but I am taught to like you need to be presentable, to be taken seriously, but also like don't act like a man, because it doesn't translate the same way for a woman, right? Like
Yeah.
if a guy in the office place is, and like this is like I feel like it's said all the time, but like really like think about it, right? Like if a woman does the same thing a man does, most of the time it's talked about negatively. Like if a female is promoted to a boss position and it has a really strict, like the previous boss had a really strict attendance, like tardiness policy, whatever, at work, and was writing up things for like timesheet errors. And then like a woman is promoted and does the same thing. All of a sudden, like she's a hard ass, she's a bitch, like she's
Yeah.
like trying to get back at it, so on and so forth. But like it causes this like level of overthinking in every situation that I don't know. I feel like you probably completely understand this, which is like you go in thinking like, how am I going to be perceived? Then you have your own preconceptions of how you're going to be perceived. So you're not only reacting in real time to the situation, but you're reacting to how you think everyone else is reacting. And
Yeah.
like for me, I have a lot of cognitive distortion. Like I oftentimes just assume everyone's thinking the absolute worst, and like about me, like, and so it's just, yeah, I don't know, it's a lot to handle. Also, I want to 180 really quickly. You mentioned, and like warms my heart, and thank you. That like me, Sophie, Zoe, Nolan are like, you feel that we are safe to be around. And I was thinking like maybe it would be a good thing to touch on what is that to you, right? Like what is an ally to you? What like connotes like a safe person for everybody out here who's like, I have friends and I don't know how to be an ally to them.
Yeah. I think what's helped a lot is noticing that you guys are constantly trying to stay on top of like educating yourself. Um, and I think what was like such an important part of our friendship, Sarah, is like when we were on a walk and you had read So You Want to Talk About Race, and I think that opened like an even deeper layer of our friendship of understanding each other's struggles and opening another layer of communication. Because the truth is, like, if you want to be like an ally for anyone, it's it's so fucking uncomfortable and painful at first. It really is just like the most uncomfortable thing because you're just like, it's easier to box these things away and not talk about them. But the truth is like, as soon as you get over that hump, you open up another layer of communication that extends past just talking about each other's oppression. It really helps deepen and strengthen your relationships and feel like a safer space for each other, um, outside of just being like, hey, is this guy bothering you? Or like, hey, are you feeling unsafe in this space? It really helps strengthen friendships. Because if you notice that, if your friend is limping, like you want to be like, oh, hey, can you want to use my shoulder? Like you want to hold on to my shoulder? Like, can I help you over to the car? Um, and I think the same thing applies here. It's just educating yourself and being aware and knowing that it is going to be uncomfortable having these conversations. And there's going to be parts where either side messes up and how they communicate and what they say or what they do. But that's a part of the process. We are the product of like, frankly, like the foundation of our society is built on, catering to a particular person, like a cis white man. And we are really working super hard to change that. But at the end of the day, like, we are a product of that machine. And so there's going to be things instilled in us that like cater to that. And it's going to take time to like rework that.
Yeah. And it is, yeah, and it is hard, but I think like it's like you said, it has been like it's really like so beautiful like for our relationship to like not feel like that's off limits. And I think it's easy like as a white person to be like, I'm colorblind, like I don't see, like it's not an issue like for us, right? Like I don't see you like that, like we're just the same, we're equal, I see us as completely equal. And it's like, that's so nice that you feel that way, but like it is a privilege to feel that way, and that is like not a privilege that's extended to people who are not white, right? Like everyone else is aware of it because like you're not aware of it because you're benefiting from it. And like that's something that's like, at first it's like, you have an emotional reaction to hearing like you have privilege, or like, like you don't understand what I'm going through because like you're white, and it feels like an attack, and it feels like, no, like I'm not like that, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm gonna get angry and defensive. And it's just not. It's like, okay, I mean, we talked about this, but like I don't know what it's like to not be white. I will never know what that's like. I can read as many books as I want, listen to as many stories, and like accounts of people's experiences. I will never ever understand. And so like when you share your experiences and like how you feel in a situation, like with someone who, like with a white person or someone who may have said something, like it will never be my place to be like, no, that wasn't racist, like you misread the situation. Like, no, like everything you ever tell me about like your experience with race will be valid, like is valid, is 100% true. And it's the same thing like when I talk to you about my experience as a woman, like you as a man you just won't get it. And it's not like to say like you're not trying hard enough or like you need to do better. It's just that like these are experiences that like we just don't share. But like you have never once questioned like, no, I think you're wrong, like that wasn't sexist at all, you're misreading the situation of what it's like to be a woman. In the same way that I would never tell you like you don't understand what it's like to be Indian, like you got that one wrong. And so that I think has been one of like the freeing thing of just like acceptance of each other's experiences. And like, so I'm gonna 180 it again and keep
I love it.
A lot of questions, and I'm not good at transitions. And so this, there's some really good ones. I'm gonna say, how can college students and young people navigate the political climate in 2020?
Ooh, I mean, you've gone through school, so you know how like stressful and hectic that is. My sister just graduated. And frankly, staying on top of politics while you're in school is incredibly difficult. That's incredibly stressful. And I understand like having to bookmark it and go, I can't do this right now, which is super valid. And that extends past school. But I think what's important is just like, it's okay to start from zero and go, okay, I'm not taking any of this in, and then take bite-sized moments, whether that's listening to like a 5-minute podcast in the morning about what's going on, or just going on Twitter at the end of the night and trying to find like news articles that wrap up the end of the day. But I do think it's important because, and I'm not trying to dramatize, but I do think that the world is in a really unprecedented place right now, and it's important that we're all aware how our vote is going to affect that.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that for anyone who's like starting at zero and is overwhelmed, like that's totally okay. Like everybody starts somewhere, like bloom where planted. And I think that my first recommendation is understand the system before you form your opinion, right? Like don't just absorb, don't parrot, don't hear what people say. And even if it's someone you trust and like love, right? Like that's not licensed to just take their opinion and like pass it on as your own if you don't know like what you're really talking about. So I'd say like first it's important to like do a little bit of homework and like understand the systems in which we exist in, right? So like what is the electoral college? Like how does our like election system work? Why are we technically like not a bipartisan country, but pretty much exist within like a two-party system, right? Like what is the historical precedent behind like the Democratic and Republican parties? So on and so forth. I think like, you know, you can pick up, there's like a very short introduction series. It's like a series of books. I have like little mini introductions. Like here's one I bought on the Supreme Court, right? It's like pretty small and it just takes me through the entire history of the Supreme Court by like an expert. They pick different experts. So like buy one on like the US political system and just like learn how it works. What is gerrymandering? Like why do I keep hearing like filibuster? That doesn't really come up as much as gerrymandering nowadays, but like you get what I mean. And then like from there, then start to like learn like what's going on and like how and like form your opinion on top of that. And I think don't get all of your information from social media. Like, and if you are going to get it from social media, like two things, like make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. So like find sources of news media that have like a journalism code of practices. So like, do they have like open and transparent like corrections policies? Like at the bottom of articles, are they willing to say like this article has been corrected because like we misused this name, blah 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 blah? Are they linking to their statistics? So like if they cite something, are they linking to it, or are they, you know, citing it at the bottom? Do you know where they're getting their information? And like really when you read an article, like are they trying to sway your opinion one way, or are they just telling you the facts as it is? And then like form your opinion, but don't read like I follow the Washington Post on in the New York Times on and even like CNN on Instagram, and they have those like posts where they have just like the headlines of articles. And it's like, that is a great way to get interested and then go read the article. But don't take the headline and just like parrot that to people, because you're taking one sentence out of like a 1,000-word like article. Like there's no way that's going to be representative of like both sides or the whole situation. And it's like they're forced to exist in that because of like the social media platform algorithms. But that's a different conversation. Now I'm just talking at you. But yeah, it's like you said, it's like start at zero, be okay with that, and then like start small and learn more. And like find a way that works for you. Like I get the like New York Times like newsletter in the morning and the evening to my email. And if I don't have time to just be on the news all day, which I don't think is great for mental health anyway, then I just like do that and like got something for the day.
And it's okay to take breaks. Like
yes.
For the past, I'm just coming back into politics like these past 3 weeks. But prior to that, I took like, I want to say like over a month off because I mentally couldn't handle it. Like my mental health was really suffering, and I knew that I cared about these issues, but I needed to distribute the weight a little bit in my life and put focus on some other things just so I could come back to it with like a fresher state of mind.
So how are you handling your mental health? Like what have been some like successful and not successful like approaches to your mental health in quarantine?
Therapy. Therapy's been a lifesaver, baby.
Yeah, relatable.
um, Asking for what I want and for what I need. Um, Not demanding it, but just asking for it. Um, and that can be, and that like extends past just the actual ask of like, hey, Sarah, I need this from you. I mean more of like an existential sense of like, I need time for myself right now. I want this for myself, and whatever it might be is giving that to myself or working to get that to myself. And it's been hard as someone who like deals with chronic depression and anxiety. Like it's hard because it's not a steady line. It's not like, great, you went to 6 therapy sessions and you're all fixed. Um, so it's just about figuring out where I'm at, and I wasn't in a solid place, and I was like, okay, cool, I just have to press the brakes a little bit, and I just have to go back to square one and figure out what I need and what I want, and then see how I can get that for myself, so I can be more present and be there for people.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, you know me, like with the same journey with like chronic depression and anxiety, it can just feel like so overwhelming someday, like sometimes, like there, and seemingly out of nowhere too, right? And that's kind of how it is. Like I know myself, and now I know like my brain chemicals tend to cycle in a way that like every like second or third week, I just have breakdowns, and like I'm getting better at learning how to deal with that, and but I'm also like okay with sometimes knowing that sometimes I'm just gonna sit on the ground and cry for no reason. Like that's just what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna like attack my to-do list because that'll make me feel better. Um, but and I think I don't know. I love the whole like asking for what you need and really like asking yourself that too. Like what would make me feel better in this moment? Like in the best possible way. Like why am I anxious? What is causing me anxiety? And how like how can I address that? Like I feel pressure to like FaceTime with my friends for an hour or two this like today because like I want to see people, but at the same time like I don't want to be on a phone screen for an hour or two, and I need for me to like communicate that I need some time for myself and I need to like decompress and be away from technology and just like sit down and think or cry or nap, whatever it is, but not too much.
Yeah.
Um, so, which brings me to like another question I thought was really interesting, which is like, how do you deal with uncontrollable circumstances? Which is
Breathing. I breathe through it as best as I can. I think the way that my mind is wired is take a deep breath, immediately make the checklist of things that you can do or how you can react, but just understanding. What trick I use? I lie to myself. I go, I've been through worse, and even if this moment doesn't feel like it feels like this is going to be the worst, I just tell myself like, I've been through worse, I can get through this.
yeah,
And that has always been like a grounding thing for me because I always can trust that I can make it out the other side. And it really helps stabilize me in situations that are destabilizing. And I'm preparing myself for, this election, whichever way it goes, could possibly like be very destabilizing. And knowing how to go, okay, like breathe, how like reset, how can I get what I need right now so I can show up for tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. I I I feel that. I think like I'm big on control. I'm big on like feeling like I'm in control.